Budget motherboards are always great, but if you want extra ports, a beefy VRM setup, and support for the latest VRM standards, it's going to cost you. The ROG Maximus Z790 is by no means an affordable motherboard, and it's not trying to be either. It's a motherboard that goes all out on almost every aspect. Its predecessor, the Z690 Hero, was already an over-the-top motherboard, but the Z790 version takes it even further. Somehow, it has an even beefier VRM setup and better wireless connectivity standards. However, it does retain everything great about the previous model, such as the ludicrous design. Speaking of which, this board is incredibly flashy, but every design element is well executed. For starters, you have the words Maximus Dark Hero printed boldly on the rear panel cover. To the right of that lettering, you get an LED display that showcases the ROG logo with some customizable RGB lighting. Right next to that, we have a gigantic all-black VRM heatsink that matches with the PCB. Oh, and we're barely getting started. The whopping 5 M2 slots are all covered with a gigantic armored heatsink that houses the ROG Eye logo. On the back, there is a metal backplate that protects all the circuitry and pins. Furthermore, as this is an enthusiast motherboard, it has a lot of extra bells and whistles you won't find elsewhere. For example, it has a feature called the PCIe slot Q release. This is essentially a button you can press to open the PCIe lock, preventing any sort of damage to the slot or the GPU itself. There's a similar Q latch on the M2 slots, eliminating the need for those tiny M2 screws. On top of that, you also get a 2-digit postcode debugging LED that displays a reference value for potential errors in your PC. If you ever need to flash the BIOS to fix those errors, the BIOS flashback allows you to do that easily. Finally, there's also a clear CMOS button on the rear. Now, onto the star of the show. This board has an impressive 20+1+2 power delivery configuration, totaling a 23-phase VRM setup. That makes it completely overkill for almost any processor on the market, but it opens the door to some ridiculous overclocking. Fortunately, the massive VRM heatsinks will help with keeping temperatures in check. Finally, let's talk about connectivity and ports. You get 5 M2 slots, 4 SATA ports, Wi-Fi 7, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and Bluetooth 5.3. On top of all that, you get your usual array of USB 3.0 and 3.2 ports. The real kicker is that you also get 2 Thunderbolt 4 Type-C ports, allowing for ultra-fast file transfers. There's another USB 20 gigabits per second Type-C connector that supports up to 60 watts fast charging. As for the competition, there are similar motherboards of this caliber. For example, there's the MSI Meg Z790 Ace Max, a board that has almost all the same features as the Maximus Dark Hero. However, it's even more expensive, making the value proposition worse. Considering all that, if you want one of the best motherboards possible for gaming and productivity, the Maximus Dark Hero is an incredible choice. It has an eye-watering price, but it's worth it if you can put it to good use pairing it with a high-end processor. To sum up, what I like is the phenomenal VRM setup, the sleek design and clever features, the customizable RGB display, and the addition of fast Thunderbolt 4 ports. On the downside, it's very expensive. Ratings: VRM design, 9 out of 10. Connectivity, 9 out of 10. Aesthetics, 9 out of 10. Features, 9 out of 10. Value for money, 7.5 out of 10. For an overall rating of 8.5 out of 10.